It's been more than 25 years since the trial of one-time football star OJ Simpson grabbed center stage as a televised event. Now, the trial in Minneapolis of former police officer Derek Chauvin is getting similar attention. And while cameras in the courtroom are a part of this, it's video evidence that is making the case. After weeks of jury selection, the trial of former officer Derek Chauvin began, and testimony has been gripping.
I don't know if you've seen anybody be killed, but it's upsetting.
That's firefighter Genevieve Hansen, who said she wanted to help George Floyd. And here's the voice of teenager Danielle Frazier, who took the infamous phone video of Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck.
I heard George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe, please get off of me."
While both sides agreed to the presence of cameras in the courtroom, all the usual trepidations had surfaced, from witness intimidation to lawyerly theatrics to fairness to the defendant.
Critics of cameras in courts might argue that in various ways the presence of cameras could change the nature of the witness testimony. But if you watch the kind of early portion of this trial, the presence of cameras really didn't seem to change the way anyone was interacting in the courtroom.
That's John Alsop, who writes a media column for Columbia Journalism Review. He says what really matters is how journalists comport themselves in covering a trial.
All of the kind of fanfare and punditry and sort of infotainment trimmings, I think it's separate to the debate about whether cameras should be physically present or not.
But it's not cameras in the courtroom that are most likely to affect this trial. It's the video evidence. Already at least 5 videos have been shown, from the infamous 9 minutes and 29 seconds to outside and inside cup foods. As John Alsop says, it's time to embrace cameras.
It's up to everyone in society to apply sort of collective scrutiny to these institutions, which we know are failing in so many ways. The presence of cameras can actually be an aid to that.
And so far, that's true. You know, Susie, it seems almost quaint at this point that we're having a discussion about cameras in the courtroom. This is something that we've had in Massachusetts since the early 1980s. But this is the first full-blown televised trial the state has ever had. So it's very unusual. So they went through all these machinations that we went through, 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel somewhat quaint, and I understand the mixed feelings. I think, we have seen how cameras have created a circus-like environment, like with OJ Simpson, and I can see a scenario where it might intimidate witnesses, especially in a case as high-profile as this. On the other hand, with COVID and the level of interest in this trial, I don't think there was an option here, so it sort of feels like a silly debate for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that we get caught up too much in whether cameras in the courtroom are good or bad. I think that they ought to be allowed as a matter of course, just because the First Amendment guarantees the public and the media access to trials. This is very important business being done in the name of the public. Unfortunately, the courts have never held that we do have a right to have cameras in the courtroom, but I really think we should. And in this case, I think the video is so compelling, both inside the courtroom and also the video evidence, that I'm hoping that this adds to the argument that cameras ought to be allowed in as a matter of course.
In federal courts too, right, Dan?
Yes, absolutely. The Supreme Court, too.
Yeah, it's past time to have this happen. What I'll be curious about is, A, what the experts said about, how it's reported, but B, in a time when we are video saturated. Does that make a difference now in a trial of this sort that is so far anyway, quite emotional in the testimony? And even in some of just the video, it's emotional to watch with no commentary from anybody. So there's a lot going on here that is way beyond whether or not the cameras should be there. I think I'll be interested to see what studies and reaction as to how the cameras were received in a trial like this at this time.
So I think cameras should be in the courtrooms as a matter of documenting everything. I don't think that means that everything the camera captures needs to be broadcast. I don't think in a case like this, where the video evidence is so clear about what actually happened, that people need to be watching for curiosity or for entertainment, character assassination, false equivalency, all sorts of other tactics that are employed when you're trying to defend the indefensible. I think there's a big difference, though, between questioning whether cameras should be allowed or questioning whether the press should be allowed. When I say that I don't think everything should be broadcast, I think everything should still be documented, and I think everything should still be reported on. I just think that sometimes, especially in a case like this, where emotions are running very high, where the video evidence is really pretty cut and dried, that I'm not sure there's really a reason to watch little kids having to explain what it was like to watch someone die. I mean, that's not, I don't see how that benefits the public.
She was a witness.
I do.
She was a witness.
No, she was a witness. Maybe I'm speaking as a parent. I wouldn't want to put my kid through that and then have them have to relive it in front of cameras while other people are watching.
Well, she wasn't in front of the camera. Actually, she was off camera. So,
but I think my point is, I think that a lot of people sometimes watch these things out of curiosity and maybe for entertainment, and I wonder where the line gets drawn.
Anybody want to take that on?
Yeah, I tend to think transparency here, especially for a legal system where, we have a lot of issues. I'm gonna sort of go vote for the side of transparency, but I see your point. But like children, just as a point, the children and family members were allowed to ask not to be shown.
Yeah, I think that was a good rule.